You won't see it on the nightly news. There are no mass protests blocking the streets, no fiery speeches on Parliament Hill. But make no mistake, something profound is brewing north of the border. A quiet yet powerful economic rebellion is taking shape. It all started on July 10, 2025, when the Trump administration announced a potential 35% blanket tariff on all Canadian goods. This wasn't the first shot fired in 2025. The US had already hit Canadian steel, aluminum, and lumber with 25% tariffs earlier in the year, and Canada had already responded with its own set of counter tariffs. But this new threat was different. A 35% blanket tariff wasn't a surgical strike. It felt like a full frontal economic assault on America's closest ally. For decades, the Canada-US relationship has been defined by shared culture and the most integrated economic partnership on the planet. This announcement has shaken that foundation. And while the tariffs haven't officially taken effect yet, everyday Canadians are already preparing their response. They're not using placards, they're using their shopping lists. They are gearing up to fire back with their wallets, sparking a grassroots consumer movement that is already sending a chill through some of America's most iconic brands. This is the story of a nation drawing a line in the sand, one potential purchase at a time. What happens when your friendly neighbor, instead of just borrowing your lawnmower, threatens to slap a 35% fee on everything you own? Welcome to the summer of 2025, where the US-Canada trade relationship is getting spicy, and Canadians are already talking about ditching American products like a bad habit. So let's explore the bubbling up boycotts that are starting to simmer across Canada. Which American brands are feeling the heat, and how are Canadian businesses looking to capitalize? Let's get into the economic drama, starting with a boycott that's threatening to go viral. Number 5, streaming services. Netflix and Disney Plus face a potential blackout. The first stirrings of rebellion are happening in the living room. For years, American streaming giants like Netflix and Disney Plus have been a default part of Canadian daily life. But the moment that 35% tariff was announced, that comfort started to curdle. The threat of a trade war suddenly got personal, with Canadians facing the very real possibility of a massive price hike on their monthly streaming bills. The online reaction was instant and fierce. The hashtag #cancel Netflix Canada exploded on social media, becoming a rallying cry for consumers. It was joined by others like #Stream Canadian and #Disney-. This wasn't some organized corporate campaign. It was a spontaneous digital uprising. People weren't just angry about the potential cost. They felt insulted. The proposed tariff felt like a penalty on their leisure time, imposed by a foreign government. While it's too early for official numbers, industry watchers are sounding the alarm. Based on the explosion of social media sentiment and early polling data, they project that if these companies pass the full cost of the tariff onto consumers, it could trigger a massive cancellation wave. A hit like that wouldn't just be a flesh wound. It would represent a potential loss of hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue from the Canadian market. But this isn't just a story about potential loss, it's also about a potential gain for Canadian platforms. Suddenly, services like Crave and CBC Gem are in the spotlight. Online, Canadians are sharing lists of must-watch shows on these platforms, and watching homegrown content is suddenly being framed as a patriotic duty. This movement represents a potential shift in the conversation around cultural sovereignty. What Canadian regulators have tried to achieve for decades with policy, a trade dispute might be accomplishing through raw, emotional consumer choice. But if you think that's just a blip on the Wi-Fi, wait until you see what's brewing in the grocery aisle, where the simple apple is becoming a symbol of the fight. Number 4, U.S. produce, Washington apples versus Canadian orchards. The next front in this simmering trade war is opening up under the fluorescent lights of the grocery store. In the wake of the tariff announcement, the grocery cart is becoming a political statement. The simple act of choosing a bag of apples is being reframed as an act of economic patriotism. While there's no hard data yet, the anecdotal evidence is powerful. Kenneth Wong, a marketing professor at Queen's University, shared a story from a recent shopping trip where he saw local, homegrown apples completely sold out, while the bin of U.S. apples next to them was virtually full. It's a snapshot that captures a growing national sentiment. Consumers are talking about more than just buying local. They're actively discussing shunning American equivalents, even before the price hikes hit. The potential impact on American farmers is huge. Canada is a massive market for U.S. produce, and industry groups are sounding the alarm. The U.S. Produce Exporters Association has warned that a sustained Canadian consumer boycott could lead to catastrophic losses for American farmers, who are watching their northern sales prospects start to wither on the vine. On the other side of the border, Canadian farmers are sensing an opportunity. For years, they've struggled to compete with the sheer volume of American imports. Now they're seeing a surge in interest from consumers, and even some grocery chains looking to promote Canadian-grown food more heavily. Farmers' markets are buzzing with a new energy. This isn't just about apples and oranges. It's about a nationwide conversation shifting towards a 100-mile diet. Not as a lifestyle trend, but as a political statement. If you think fruit is a soft target, let's talk about the hard stuff. The next boycott hits Americans right where it hurts: their morning coffee. Number 3, U.S. coffee chains and restaurants, a chilly reception for big brands. The morning coffee run is a sacred ritual. For years, American giants like Starbucks have dominated the premium coffee scene in Canada. But since the tariff threat, that empire is facing a potential rebellion from the Canadian consumer. The boycott of U.S. coffee chains is subtle. There are no picket lines, just the quiet, individual decision of thousands of people to walk a few extra feet to a competitor. It's the office worker who skips the U.S. chain in their lobby for a double-double from Tim Hortons. While it's too soon for official sales data, the shift in sentiment is palpable. The main beneficiary of this caffeinated nationalism is, unsurprisingly, Tim Hortons. The brand, deeply woven into the Canadian cultural fabric, has been instantly recast as a patriotic champion. But the real winners might be the smaller players. Independent coffee shops and local Canadian roasters are seeing a surge of support online and in their communities, as consumers actively look for alternatives to the big American brands. This sentiment is extending beyond coffee to the entire US-based fast food sector. The message from the Canadian consumer is becoming clearer. The loyalty that American brands spent decades building is fragile, and it's being put to the test one cup of coffee at a time. But the battle over coffee is just the appetizer. The next boycott goes much deeper, turning every shopping trip for everyday goods into a patriotic scavenger hunt. Number 2, everyday essentials and big box retail, checking the label. This is where the boycott threat becomes a truly pervasive, nationwide movement. We're moving into the vast world of everyday household goods: kitchenware, cleaning supplies, tools, and candles. For most shoppers, the country of origin for a spatula was never a top concern. The July 10th tariff announcement is starting to change that. Suddenly, the aisles of big box stores are being seen through a new lens: US versus them. The proposed 35% tariff is a blanket measure, and as Canadians digest this, they're starting to look at products differently. This has led to the rise of the patriotic shopper, people flipping over packages, searching for that Made in Canada label. It's a real-time crowdsourced database for the conscious consumer. This movement is also fueled by the knowledge that Canada has its own 25% counter tariffs on $29.8 billion worth of US goods, making consumers on both sides of the border more aware of the trade war's impact. The potential economic shift here is colossal, representing a multi-billion-dollar opportunity for domestic manufacturers if the sentiment holds. And finally, we come to the boycott that could have the most profound consequences of all. This one goes beyond consumer goods and strikes at the very heart of the North American economy. Number 1, the automotive sector, a red line on the assembly line. We've arrived at the number 1 spot, and it's the issue that has economists on both sides of the border deeply concerned. The 35% tariff threat against the auto industry isn't just a challenge, it's an existential crisis. Since the 1965 Auto Pact, the US and Canadian auto industries have essentially operated as one. Parts and vehicles flow freely across the border, creating a deeply integrated supply chain that supports hundreds of thousands of jobs in both countries. A 35% tariff would be a sledgehammer to this system. The reaction here isn't a traditional consumer boycott, but a crisis of confidence and future intent. Canadian auto parts manufacturers are in crisis mode, warning that such a tariff would make them instantly uncompetitive and could shutter factories. They are reportedly making contingency plans and exploring partnerships with European and Asian companies, representing the first potential steps in a historic economic decoupling. On the consumer side, the tariff announcement has poisoned the well. Online forums are buzzing as Canadians debate the ethics of buying from the big three American automakers. Early polling suggests a significant number of Canadians planning to buy an American brand vehicle are now actively considering Japanese, Korean, or European alternatives, especially those with plants in Canada. Industry analysts have warned that a full-blown tariff war in the auto sector would be an act of mutually assured economic destruction, risking hundreds of thousands of jobs and causing chaos for the entire North American industry. This is the nuclear option, a red line drawn by consumers and industry alike. So there you have it. From our streaming queues to our future cars, the mere threat of a 35% tariff has awakened a powerful sense of economic nationalism in Canada. This isn't a government-led campaign. It's a citizen-driven conversation about the power of the consumer. The long-term consequences are still unknown. Will this de-escalate, or is this the moment Canada begins to decisively step out of America's long economic shadow? The story is still being written with every dollar spent and every choice made. If you found this breakdown of the Canada-US trade clash interesting, hit that like button and subscribe for more analysis of the economic battles shaping our world. Now we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Which US product would you be most likely to boycott, or which Canadian brand are you proud to support?